Hello, hello. We'll give this a second for Facebook to send out the alerts, but maybe people will catch up with this or maybe won't. I'm going to do something that I've been wanting to do for a while, but just never quite got around to it. I don't know how successful this will be. Hopefully I can do this in one take, but my desire is to read, which I know a lot of people don't like to hear people read out loud. I'd like to think I'm a fairly decent reader, so I'm going to try to do this out loud so that maybe more people will study this. Those of you who know me know that I am a big fan, somewhat of a disciple, if you will, of someone that I affectionately refer to as that dude, Booker T. Washington, born in 1856 as a slave, and when he died in 1915, he was arguably definitely the most well-known and arguably the greatest black man that America has ever seen. And so, yes, and I still think he's the greatest black man that America's ever produced. And if you know his history, then you would probably agree if you've really studied in depth. So once again, I'm going to attempt to read what is known as what was entitled the Atlanta Exposition speech, but what has been denigrated by leftists, by Marxist-minded individuals. They've attempted to rebrand it as the Atlanta Compromise, but in reality it was known as the Atlanta Exposition speech, and it's only through revisionist history that has been denigrated the way it has. This is actually taken more or less from his book, his great book, Up From Slavery. So I hope you enjoy this. We'll see how this works, and I'll upload it to YouTube later on, and hopefully it helps people to kind of learn a little bit more and really inspires. My goal is to inspire you to study more on your own, to share this with your children, because more people need to know about this man and what he helped to accomplish, how he empowered and enabled black people who were, many of them, born as slaves, and helped us to grow beyond that, to help us to go up from slavery, because this is a message that needs to be heard. So, excuse me, I'm gonna have a quick drink of water and see if I can get through this. Once again, this is taken from his book, Up From Slavery. And on September 18th, 1895, this speech was made at the Cotton States Exposition in Atlanta. In those days, such expositions were akin to a world fair today. Along with other Americans, black craftsmen, farmers, and entrepreneurs displayed their achievements. This was the first time a black had been called upon to address a mixed audience. The response by both blacks and whites in the audience was emotional. Some openly wept with joy. Governor Bullock introduced me in the following words: "We have with us today the representative of Negro enterprise and Negro civilization. I have the honor to introduce to you Professor Booker T. Washington, principal of the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute, who will formally present the Negro exhibit." After his introduction, when I arose to speak, there was considerable cheering in the audience, especially from the section of the room occupied by my own people. The sun was shining brightly in my face, and I had to move about a good deal on the platform so as to reach a position that would enable me to escape the rays of the sun. I think the thing at the present time that I'm most conscious of is that I saw thousands of eyes looking intently into my face. From the moment I was introduced until the end of my address, I seemed to have entirely forgotten myself. The following is the address which I delivered. And here's the introduction. Mr. President and gentlemen of the Board of Directors and citizens, 1/3 of the population of the South is of the Negro race. No enterprise seeking the material, civil, or moral welfare of this section can disregard this element of our population and reach the highest success. I but convey to you, Mr. President and directors, the sentiment of the masses of my race when I say that in no way have the value and manhood of the American Negro been more fittingly and generously recognized than by the managers of this magnificent exposition at every stage of its progress. It is a recognition that will do more to cement the friendship of the two races than any occurrence since the dawn of our freedom. Not only this, but the opportunity here afforded will awaken among us a new era of industrial progress. Ignorant and inexperienced, it is not strange that in the first years of our new life, we began at the top instead of at the bottom. That a seat in Congress or the state legislature was more sought than real estate or industrial skill. That the political convention or stump speaking had more attractions than starting a daily farm or truck garden. A ship lost at sea for many days suddenly sighted a friendly vessel. From the mast of the unfortunate vessel was seen a signal: "Water, water, we die of thirst." The answer from the friendly vessel at once came back: "Cast down your bucket where you are." A second time the signal, "Water, water, send us water," ran up from the distressed vessel and was answered, "Cast down your bucket where you are." The captain of the distressed vessel, at last heeding the injunction, cast down his bucket, and it came up full of fresh, sparkling water from the mouth of the Amazon River. To those of my race who depend on bettering their condition in a foreign land, or who underestimate the importance of cultivating friendly relations with a Southern white man who is their next door neighbor, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down in making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom we are surrounded. Cast it down in agriculture, mechanics, in commerce, in domestic service, and in the professions. And in this connection, it is well to bear in mind that whatever other sins the South may be called to bear when it comes to business, pure and simple, it is in the South that the Negro is given a man's chance in the commercial world, and in nothing is this exposition more eloquent than in emphasizing this chance. Our greatest danger is that in the great leap from slavery to freedom, we may overlook the fact that the masses of us are to live by the production of our hands, and fail to keep in mind that we shall prosper in proportion as we learn to dignify and glorify common labor, and put brains and skill into the common occupations of life. Shall prosper in proportion as we learn to draw the line between the superficial and the substantial, the ornamental gewgaws of life and the useful. No race can prosper till it learns that there is as much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem. It is at the bottom of life we must begin, and not at the top. Nor should we permit our grievances to overshadow our opportunities. To those of the white race who look to the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongues and habits for the prosperity of the South, were I permitted, I would repeat what I say to my own race: cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down among the 8 million Negroes whose habits you know, whose fidelity and love you have tested in days when to have proved treacherous meant the ruin of your firesides. Cast down your bucket among those people who have, without strikes and labor wars, tilled your fields, cleared your forest, builded your railroads and cities, and brought forth treasures from the bowels of the earth, and helped make possible this magnificent representation of the progress of the South. Casting down your bucket among my people, helping and encouraging them as you are doing on these grounds, and with education of head, hand, and heart, you will find that they will buy your surplus land, make blossom the waste places in your fields, and run your factories. While doing this, you can be sure in the future, as in the past, that you and your families will be surrounded by the most patient, faithful, law-abiding, and unresentful people that the world has seen. As we have proved our loyalty to you in the past in nursing your children, watching by the sickbed of your mothers and fathers, and often following them with tear-dimmed eyes to their graves, so in the future, in our humble way, we shall stand by you with a devotion that no foreigner can approach, ready to lay down our lives, if need be, in defense of yours, interlacing our industrial, commercial, civil, and religious life with yours in a way that shall make the interests of both races one. In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. There is no defense or security for any of us except in the highest intelligence and development of all. If anywhere there are efforts tending to curtail the fullest growth of the Negro, let these efforts be turned into stimulating, encouraging, and making him the most useful and intelligent citizen. Effort or means so invested will pay 1,000% interest. These efforts will be twice blessed, blessing him that gives and him that takes. There is no escape through law of man or God from the inevitable. Nearly 16 million of hands will aid you in pulling the load upwards, or they will pull against you the load downwards. We shall constitute 1/3 and more of the ignorance and crime of the South, or 1/3 of its intelligence and progress. We shall contribute 1/3 to the business and industrial prosperity of the South, or we shall prove a veritable body of death, stagnating, depressing, retarding every effort to advance the body politic. The laws of changeless justice bind oppressors with oppressed, and close as sin and suffering joined, we march to fate abreast. Gentlemen of the Exposition, as we present to you our humble effort at an exhibition of our progress, we must not expect overmuch. Starting 30 years ago with ownership here and there, in a few quilts and pumpkins and chickens gathered from miscellaneous sources, remembering the path that has led from these to the invention and production of agricultural implements, buggies, steam engine, newspapers, books, statuary, carvings, paintings, the management of drugstores and banks has not been trodden without contact with thorns and thistles. While we take pride in what we exhibit as a result of our independent efforts, we do not for a moment forget that our part in this exhibition would fall far short of your expectations, but for the constant help that has come to our educational life, not only from Southern states, but especially from Northern philanthropists, who have made their gifts a constant stream of blessing and encouragement. The wisest among my race understand that the agitation of questions of social equality is the extremest folly, and that progress in the enjoyment of all the privileges that will come to us must be the result of severe and constant struggle rather than by artificial forcing. No race that has anything to contribute to the markets of the world is long in any degree ostracized. It is important and right that all privileges of the law be ours, but it is vastly more important that we be prepared for the exercise of these privileges. The opportunity to earn $1 in a factory just now is worth infinitely more than the opportunity to spend $1 in the opera house. In conclusion, may I repeat that nothing in 30 years has given us more hope and encouragement and drawn us so near to you of the white race as this opportunity offered by the Exposition. And here, bending as it were, over the altar that represents the results of the struggles of our race, of your race and mine, both starting practically empty-handed 3 decades ago, I pledge that in your effort to work out the great and intricate problem which God has laid at the doors of the South, you shall have at all times the patient, sympathetic help of my race. Only let this be constantly in mind, that while the representations in these buildings of the products of field, of forest, of mine, of factory, letters, and art, much good will come, yet far above and beyond material benefits will be that higher good that let us pray God will come. In a bloating out of the sectional differences and racial animosities and suspicions, in a determination to administer absolute justice, in a willing obedience among all classes to the mandate of law, this, coupled with our material prosperity, will bring into our beloved South a new heaven and a new earth. Folks, I hope you go and read that speech for yourself. I'll include the link, but I really hope you go and read that speech for yourself. Booker T. Washington, that dude, in his own words, and ask yourself, does his message resonate in 2018? I hope it does resonate with you. I hope you find value in it. I hope you realize that his message is just as necessary in 2018 as it is and it was in 1895. My name is Christopher Harris. I'm the Executive Director of Unhyphenated America. Thank you for listening in.